How's this? Can you guys hear me in the back over there? Is this any good? How's this? Better?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me okay like this? Or is this better? No problem. No problem. Sorry, I know it's a little bit loud over here, so I'll do the best I can to talk in my big boy voice, and hopefully we can block out some of that noise. So, right on. How many of you have never heard me talk about this stuff before? Because I see some familiar faces, but I see a few new ones in here. How many of you guys have never heard me talk about how to cross over spirit with family before? Cool. Cool. Well, first of all, welcome. So, a little bit of background history about myself. My name is Nick Salzman. Nice to meet you. I'm 41 years old. Grew up in Hillsboro, Oregon, so not too far from here. And the paranormal has been something that's been a part of my life as long as I can remember. So before I knew what I was looking at, I was seeing things that I thought everyone else was dealing with too. But every time I talked about this stuff, I always saw raised eyebrows, I saw big eyes, and so I learned at a young age that sometimes this stuff wasn't always appropriate to talk about. So what I hope to do today is we're going to be able to create a space that's going to make all this stuff appropriate to talk about. And anything is not taboo here. You know, we can get real weird real quick. But what I really hope to do is take some of the stuff that I think causes fear around the subject, just because we don't really know, and try and replace that with a little bit of understanding. The only thing I can give you is my experience. I'm someone that is full of a ton of unpopular opinions, but I tell you what I find works for me doesn't work for everybody else. So if you find something that we talk about today and it seems to resonate with you, take it. If it doesn't resonate with you, put it aside. It's all good. There's no right or wrong here. So dealing with the paranormal, it always causes a lot of speculation because some people frankly don't believe in it. Some people have a harder time perceiving it. If you're having a hard time hearing me, there's a couple more chairs up here. It's okay. I got another chair if you need it up here. You're good. So first of all, it's an increased awareness, and what we are is something that's more than a physical body. I think people can relate to having a soul or a spirit, or maybe even just a belief of knowing that we go on to somewhere else after we pass away. So we don't really know what that looks like. We only get told about it, so this is where a lot of the uncertainty comes. So the benefits that I've found doing this work is it helps kind of dissolve that fear around death. It very much dissolves the thought of separation between you and the deceased. Some people find that really not comforting at all. Some people might be able to find peace and joy and help others with this. So what we're here to do is we're here to help bring balance, help bring peace, and help bring understanding. So I'll tell you a little bit about how I got into this stuff. When I would move from house to house, I started noticing that when I would move in, it was always calm, but within like a week or two, it was like the same kind of phenomenon would always happen. The pops, the creaks, the house is always settling, but how come it settles right there on the countertop when I walk by? How come it's only the bed that does it at this time of the hour when you're the only one awake? I started wondering this, and so this pop, this sound, I kept hearing it, and it would be subtle, it'd just be a little creak, little pop. I started noticing that I would hear it everywhere. I'd walk by cars and I'd hear it. I'd walk by concrete walls and I'd hear it. Sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night and I'd grab my cell phone. I'd wake up, start scrolling on my phone, and then from the other side of the house, right above me. What the heck was that? I would act like I was asleep and I wouldn't pick up my phone, and it would have never happened. But as soon as I was awake and on my phone, within a minute, there was something in my room with me, and I started picking up on this. So I had a teacher at the time who was teaching me about meditation, and I said, hey man, I'm hearing this pop, do you know anything about this? And he said, no, but be careful about telling people about it because they might think you're crazy if you're talking about hearing something, right? So of course, he's a funny guy. We both laughed about that. So what I found interesting was what came next. I started noticing this pop. I decided to go out to eat one night, and there was a bookstore that was right next to the restaurant. And I was at this point where I wanted to find out as much information as I could about what happens after death and what happens before birth. That little block of time, that's what I wanted to know more about. So I decided to go to this bookstore and see if I could find something on that kind of information. I'm walking up and down these aisles. I'm not seeing anything that's catching my eye. And then as soon as I give up and I start to leave, I turn and I look, and there's this one book. It's a gray book surrounded by all these dark books. And I pull it out, and it says, People That Don't Know They're Dead by Gary Leon Hill. I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. So I flip it open and start reading the preface to it. And the author is a guy that lives in Eugene, and his accomplice who's working with him is a lady that lives in Nebraska. Well, I found that significant because I'm also from Oregon, and my first teacher was a lady from Nebraska. So I said, okay, that's significant, I'll take it home. So I took it home, got some time to sit down and read it, and in this book, it gave me the introduction on how to use a pendulum in order to determine what's around you and how to help cross over spirits. This was my first introduction to the pendulum. Some people just get the yes or no questions. I bypassed all that right from the get-go. So I started getting into this stuff, and this is exactly what I was interested in. So it was nice that it kind of started scratching that itch and feeding that hunger. So as I started getting into this, I started realizing a couple things. That for one, you mess around with this stuff, you're going to get that attention. And I think some people get really nervous or scared about opening a door and not being able to close it, or kind of those experiences, right? And so if you're the type of person that is kind of like unsure, scared, but also like kind of like fascinated with the paranormal or watching the haunting shows or anything that has to do with like psychics and readings and that kind of stuff, that tells me that there's probably a hidden talent that's below. There's a reason why you're interested in this stuff. It's likely because you have experience with it before. Now, of course, this opens up the idea of like having other lifetimes and other things that we pull from. But either way, you're drawn to it and fearful of it for a reason. It's because there's something on the other side of that fear that's going to really benefit you in the world if you get into it. So a couple of things to consider. With this work, being able to have some sort of a prayer of intention, a prayer of protection, something that's going to help. So for me, one of the easiest ones that I would always say before I pick up a pendulum would say, under the light of God, I ask for your protection. Surround me in the highest light, keep me protected from all negativity, and allow me to repel what doesn't serve my highest good. So this is pretty basic. You guys can put whatever spin or words on it, but something like this is really important to say every time before you pick up the pendulum. When you say it and your body gets used to it every time you're doing this, it kind of becomes law and it helps you with what you're doing. So what people don't understand yet, or at least it's kind of overlooked, is if you are getting spirits that are coming to you and they're happening, you're clearing them and more are coming, and you're clearing them and you're clearing them and you're clearing them, there's something we're missing here. And what we're missing, I've been able to determine, is that we carry something in common with them. And what that means is if we're not willing to work on what we have in common with them, then we're also holding back the ability to embody more light. Or raise your vibration, or whatever you want to call it. So, how many of you guys have ever heard of people using a Ouija board before? Right? Oh yeah, see all the hands go up. We all know the Ouija board. Right, and I'm sure a lot of people here have some stories about maybe some not so good things happening after using a Ouija board, right? Pulling some stuff through that aren't usually so friendly, they're kind of having a hard time. So, think of it like this. If somewhere in your subconscious, you have memories of being abandoned, you have memories of not being loved or stood up for or forgotten, or maybe you just like fear that deep down. We fear the same stuff that they fear. If we have this fear of abandonment, the reason why I speak on it, because this is probably the most common one. When someone feels forgotten, forsaken, left alone, or abandoned, it holds a lot of fear inside of us. And some of these things that come through with the Ouija board, they feel forgotten. They feel abandoned. They feel all these types of feelings where they're stuck and they can't move on and they just don't have any hope. So what I'm saying is when we hop on the Ouija board, we will attract something to a similar vibration. And so if we're someone that carries a lot of anger and we're frustrated with a lot of stuff, you're probably going to attract things that are angry and frustrated. It's just kind of the way it is. But it's not meant to punish us. It's meant to be a mirror on what we're not working on to help us elevate beyond it. So where the pain is, that's where the light can come in. So the more that we do the work, the more that it reveals stuff about ourselves. Now, I will tell you what's the most dangerous thing about doing this work. It'll probably shatter your reality. And what that means is these constructs that we have that help keep us safe, sometimes they don't work the same way anymore because we're looking for a deeper understanding. We're looking to look for truth. We're looking for purpose. But really, we want to understand. And that's what it comes down to. So whenever these things come around, understand that they are a mirror to something that we need to work on inside. That's why they're there. Now, you'll know about earthbound spirits, but let's talk a little bit about angels. How many of you guys are familiar with guardian angels and that kind of stuff? They're really helpful. And I will say that they're very patient. And they're also, thankfully, very stubborn. They don't give up easy on us. And they are absolutely wonderful. And if you get into this work, having their help is going to be really, really important. We'll talk a little bit about the difference between a human spirit and a non-human spirit. But I'll tell you, when we get into this work, having the help of an angel, or seraphim angel, spirit guide, whatever you want to call them, we're going to need their help when we get into this stuff, okay? So, before I get into all this, does anybody have any questions or anything they want to say real quick? Anything? Cool. So, get into this work, what does it look like? Well, right off the bat, if you make contact with something in your house, you do a clearing on your house, there's something that's going to go off. There is now a chain reaction. You have unlocked the key to help get stuff out of their misery and how to help move it on and get it back to its family. There is an energetic signature that comes with that, and they start talking about it. So what happens is, if you're looking to understand and you don't want to bite off more than you can chew, ask for it. Hey, I want to get into this work, but I don't want it to be too overwhelming. Give it to me bit by bit. Let me take it little bit by little bit so I can digest it and I'll understand it and I'll turn around and help with it. It'll be so. If you're like me, you say, give me what you got, and I'm going head first, and then it's kind of how I got into everything. So when we help, the first ones that will come forward is usually going to be a family member. Now, this family member is likely going to be someone that was abusive. They're going to be someone that we're going to have a hard time forgiving because they did some bad stuff. Sometimes it's the person that worked a lot. You know, if you grew up in a time where you just had to work for the family and you were gone working, providing, maybe you didn't really get that chance to have that kind of a good relationship with your kids. And so sometimes they want to stick around and be a part of the family, right? So the forgiveness part is huge, because if the first ones that come forward are usually the ones that we don't want to deal with. If we acknowledge them, show them love, heal them, help cross them over, they will come back as a being of light. And they will grab about a half dozen or more other family members of yours that are beings of light, and that's where your real protection starts coming in. And not only that, they're going to start grabbing other ones similar to them and bringing them to you, because now the bad stuff they did in life, when they start acting at a level of service, they're going to start bringing other people to you to give you the practice, but to also offset some of their negative karma, if that makes sense. So if they did bad in life, they're going to learn to serve one way or the other. In this life or the next, you're going to learn to serve. So being of service is a big thing that we can do. And our part that plays between the spirit world and the physical world, we are incredible beings. You really have to understand that what we bring to the table is much more than a lot of the other stuff, because we have more feet and more worlds. And we can put it together and do things with it. So dealing with humans, earthbound human spirits, I would say are probably harder to deal with than non-humans, just because people have their own afflictions. They want to stick around and be around their kids. They want to hang around their car. They like their house still. They don't feel dead. Or maybe, just maybe, they have some sort of a religious dogma that keeps them scared and fearful of transition. That's also a big common one too. Non-human spirits, they want one thing: out. They want out. As long as you're willing to get them out, they'll listen. But the funny thing about them is, if you acknowledge them, sometimes it startles them, because they're so used to being unseen. They're so used to not being picked up on, and all of a sudden you go, hey, that's you, I see you. They go, it can be kind of animalistic too, think about it. If you've been out in the wild for years, hundreds of years, and no one's ever talked to you, and then someone finally did, you might act like an animal too. It's just kind of the way it is. But either way, one of the things for sure is forgiveness and love is what really helps these things. How many of you have ever seen the movie Moana before? Moana with Tikal and Tafiti. Tikal, that big lava monster, right? And Tafiti, are they different? Or are they one and the same? When I saw that movie, and I saw Tikal and Moana say, I know who you are, know who you really are. She put that stone and turned it right back into the nature goddess. I about fell out of my chair. I said, they are teaching people how to heal a demon 101. Because whether you want to call them, they have a lot of different names, but that was definitely essentially how it works. So we talked a little bit about human spirits. What makes us different than non-humans is that we have a Christ spark. We have a part of us that's literally a piece of the Creator. Whereas a non-human spirit, a jinn, a demon, an archangel, they are more pure spirit. These are made of pure spirit. And so I would say more ultraviolet light than anything. One's just on one opposite side of the spectrum than the other. But we have a spark of the creator within a physical body. So spark of the creator gives us creative abilities. Physical body gives us an electromagnetic field that's really, really strong because of our heart. Our brain gives us intellect, and not only that, drive. It allows us to focus. So if we take our will from our heart, say, I want to help, and then all of a sudden we attach our intention, this is how I'm going to help. And then we say, okay, we're going to help this way, and at the end of it, we take a big breath, and we put on top of it, that breath seals the deal. When you come into this body, what's the first thing you take? When you leave it, what's the last thing you take? Dude, it's more than oxygen you're taking in right there. It ties you to this physical existence. So if you have the ability to put positive intentions in with that breath, and you can direct it towards something of the energetic nature, such as spirit, you can absolutely change their position. You don't need to give them fear. You don't need to give them anything else weird. You don't need to give them any blood or rituals or any of that kind of weird stuff. Give them the breath. If they knew how to access that breath, they wouldn't bother you. They absolutely wouldn't. But what happens is they get in a state of being stuck. This is where we start talking about the non-human stuff, the demons, the elementals, the jinn, the shapeshifters, the shadow people, the skinwalkers, the elementals, the rakshas, the obaki, whatever you want to call them. They got a lot of names, but they're all the same. And what it is they're pure spirit, and they're stuck. And so what happens is people can call them through like magical witchcraft, incantations, and they can make them do stuff. And so this is where everything kind of changed. We hold dominion over them because we have a physical body. We can hold them in with magic. If you ever heard of binding or some of these other kind of stuff that you can do, it's not, I wouldn't recommend doing any of that. But because of that, they're really scared of us too, because we could actually hurt them. We know how to, and a lot of them have been hurt before. So this is also why they like to stay hidden. And you know what they're more scared of, rather than you hurting them, is you turning them away after you know that they're there. They are more fearful of that than anything else. Being turned away when they are desperate, and you turn them away even though you know how to pick up on them, they're more afraid of that than anything. So one thing I will say is they can be pushy. They just want to be helped. But if you give them your worth, hey, I know you're here, and I know you need some help. I can help you at the moment, but when I get a chance to go home and sit down and make my coffee in the morning, I promise I'll help you. But do me a favor, leave my family alone. You're a guest here in my house. I will absolutely help you. Just leave us alone tonight and only deal with me. Don't deal with my family. You lay down the foreground of what you want them to act by or how to conduct themselves, and they'll listen. They absolutely will. They're very respectful. But if you forget and you get on your phone and start getting on Facebook, TikTok, all of a sudden that smoke alarm beep, will go off. Hey, guess what? You need to uphold your word. So what I'm telling you is you can help, and it's really easy to help them, but they'll also help you make sure you keep your word. Because if not, then they'll start getting in your dreams. They'll start kind of messing with you a little bit. So these non-human spirits, they were here before us. There's something that was here. There's a lot of speculation as to what they are, but I can tell you is they absolutely have a little bit of leverage over us when it comes to the dream world. The dream world, not a lot of us are capable of changing our dreams or being aware of our dreams, but this is where they can kind of interact with stuff. Now there's a type of jinn we're going to talk about real quick, and I just call them the jinn. I have a book on the topic. That's just what I call them. It's one word, but it's a title that I think that they're okay with. So there's a type of jinn, and it's called a Quarin. And a Quarin is one of those that can really cause issues with people because they can look like people we know, they can act like people we know, but one of the things that they usually do is they'll pop into your dream being someone that you love, doing something really bad, like breaking a dog's leg, cheating on you, doing something that would really get a rise out of you, right? But the one thing, if you look at them, you'll always know it's not them because they have a weird little look in their eyes, or they have a small little smirk on their face, or there's just something about their physical feature that's just off a little bit. Trust it, because oftentimes it's being manipulated. Why do they do this? Because we wake up going, oh man, why did I see that? How come I'm dealing with this? Da-da-da-da. It puts us in this funk. Our emotions create energy that some of these have found the ability to survive off of. If they knew how to get to that breath, they wouldn't bother doing that, but they're pretty good at doing that. So some go after the fear. Some go after the orgasm. Some go after anxiety. Some just go out of straight up vertigo. This is how some of this stuff feels, right? But the Quarin are the type that will get people to the point of psychosis, because they will put stuff into their memory that they can't quite tell the difference with. And so what that could be, some kid, I remember helping this one kid in Ohio. Basically, the mom had reached out and said, hey, my son's experiencing something really weird. And I said, well, what's going on? And then, I don't know these people, but they reached out. You know, I do a lot of my work on like Facebook and some of the social media stuff. And she said that her son was waking up in the middle of the night and seeing his mom standing in his room. And one morning, or early evening, or whatever it was, the mom was in the room and did the same thing, kind of walked out. And then when he got up to follow his mom, she wasn't in the hallway. And he walked all the way down to her bedroom and found her stone cold asleep in her bed. This is a Quarin. You guys ever heard of a doppelganger before? This is a Quarin. So these are the type that can really get into your memory. And so you have to be observant of it. And if you feel off about it, trust it. You know, they have the ability to mimic people's voices. They have the ability to sound like people. And so there's a lot of capabilities to these things. They are different, but trust the feeling you get when they're around. For me, I'm definitely an empath. I pick up on a lot of that stuff. So what do I feel when they come around? It's an elevated heart rate. Sometimes a shortness of breath. Sometimes the dizziness. But one of the other things that I get too, it's either a sharp pain here in the chest or oftentimes right here in the temple. Or on the top of the head. It's a sharp pain and then it goes away. And so anytime I'm dealing with this, or if I'm perceiving spirit and I'm starting to see a shape of a person, all of a sudden I get a bump in the head, I already know that's not really a person. And they're just not sure to reveal themselves to me. But the thing about them is they can choose to remain invisible, but if we learn to see with here, the same place we can recollect memory. If I said, hey, remember we showed up to that person's party and this person fell and that happened, you can still see those events in your mind. This is where we see them. If we can learn to see them there's no hiding. Here's the thing though, once you put on the shades, they don't come off. If you know how to see them, they know you know how to see them. And so that's when they come forward. So, once again, they have something in common with us, right? That's why they're there. Now the last one we're going to talk about is going to be basically human created stuff. So this is like thought form energy. How many people have ever heard of poltergeist before? Poltergeist is kind of a term of like, you ever walked into a room maybe after some people were arguing and you walk in and you're just kind of like, ugh, like the room feels thick or whatever, right? Like, the air, so you can feel that tension, right? So what happens if you can get this to build up, some people are way better at projecting energy than others. Oftentimes we hear this stuff circling around teenagers. Why? Because as they're growing up, they're thinking about, this is the person I want to be, or this is the person I don't want to be, or they're really looking at projecting who they want to be into this world and what their place is, right? So pretty common for teenagers, plus dealing with anxieties and emotions and everything that comes with puberty, yada, yada, yada. So this stuff can get stuck in the environment after a while, right? And it can start accumulating. Now, this stuff can also be energetically a sustenance, right? For one of these jinn to come along. Now all of a sudden we can use this as like clay. And let's say you have a young girl that moves into a house, right? Maybe she came from another situation when she was abused by a man. And so she was definitely afraid of waking up and seeing a male figure in that doorway, right? Well, if you have these fears and you're constantly projecting, this is what you don't want, this is what you don't want, they pick up on that. Next thing you know, they turn into a figure that stands in the doorway because it's a projection of your fears. Once again, a mirror for what's going inside. So there's just a lot of different ways to do it, but this stuff, very, very easy to clear. Very easy to clear with a pendulum. So we can go ahead and start talking about some of the method. I know I can ramble on a lot and I don't have a ton of time with you guys, but before we get into the method, does anybody have any questions about anything? Yes?
So when you were talking about seeing or having that quadrant, is this only in dream state or is this day, night, whatever? When you said you can kind of start to sense them or if they're a little off, Is that only kind of in the dream state that they kind of do that, or is it?
So she's asking a really good question. She's asking about the quarter in. She's asking if I only see him in the dream state or if I see him in a walking state, like we're at right now. And I've dealt with a lot of people that have seen them in this walking state. This is what generates the psychosis. Because you're awake and you saw something. I had this one gal I was dealing with, and she was in a hospital for, it was something minor. She was in there getting something dealt with her stomach. But a doctor came in and she said this doctor gave her the creeps and said some stuff that doctors shouldn't normally say to people or whatever. And I'm like, okay, how do you tell someone that what you saw is what you didn't really see, right? But the whole understanding of like this kind of stuff, if that ever comes to you, you have a little bit of opportunity for discernment, you know what I mean? But most of the stuff that I see with it, dream state. Dream state, for me, that's what it seems to happen. Most of the time I'm so busy, but at nighttime, that's where I really seem to make that connection. Yes? I've seen the orbs before, but I would say it's more common that I've seen someone turn off and leave in an orb. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that, something that can be any shape, it's probably going to move itself to a shape that you're going to be able to recognize it, or at least distinguish it. So like for me, when I would see orbs, something that was gray, I would definitely see that more as like an earthbound human spirit. If it was something that had like a bluish color to it, or like a green, usually it reminded me of something that like was almost like kind of like a healer, almost like a nature spirit or something like that. Sure. Anything with like purple, that kind of stuff was usually more like a higher spiritually advanced being or whatever. So there's a lot of people out there that have those theories, but I would say colors do matter. Yes.
So I had an experience last year in the house I was working with, like 1911, and there was, when we moved in, it was a very clear understanding not to open the attic. We had renters come in that opened the attic. After that, like the feeling and the sensation of there being something in the house was very present, and then all of a sudden I was the only one left living there for the last couple months, and I saw like a dark man figure with a hat. And I listened to you last year, before I knew I made friends with it. Like I opened a casual conversation, and then I tried commanding and demanding to leave because it started acting out. And then before I knew it, like I'm laying in bed and there's stuff flying off the kitchen counters, and I'm entered in a fear state, even though I know that nothing can actually harm me outside of self. But yeah, it was very interesting learning experience, and from what I'm understanding, that might not have, I thought it was a Jinn spirit, but maybe not if I see an actual silhouette.
Oh no, you're right.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, some people will call that the Hat Man. That's definitely. So you saw one of those, and they'll react a certain way. But I want the people that are here that are energetically sensitive. Does anybody else feel the sway in here? So like when this thing comes around, that's that vertigo feeling we're talking about. So if anybody else is feeling kind of like weird from it, you're absolutely right. So I have this weird thing about it where I've done this work for so long, when people talk about it, I say, and so what I do is I pull things forward for people. So you've done it successfully, so when the show's over, I'll get a chance to help them out. So hopefully it won't bother you anymore. Because when people talk about memories, this is when they get stuck in the subconscious. In the subconscious, I know we're getting, I guess, in a different direction. We'll talk about this real quick. The subconscious is where you're going to find a lot of these non-human spirits attached. This is what's connected to the dream world. This is also what's connected to bad experiences like traumas or, bad things that happen to us. But for me, I can put up tourmaline around my whole house. I can put up a salt ring. I can put holy water on all the windows. I can put a blessing. I can do sage. I can do sweetgrass, cedar, everything. As soon as I go to bed and I have a dream about them, pop, they're right back in my house. They operate by a very big, different set of rules. Once again, people's reality comes traveling down because that stuff doesn't work on everything. So we can ask for our spiritual guides to help block that stuff out until we're ready with it, but we're only going to reach a certain point of understanding until we actually upset this stuff, because it really helps us really develop a really deep sense of like feel. What's the difference between someone that died around you from a heart attack and someone that died from COPD? Feeling. What's the difference between someone having a seizure and someone going into diabetic shock? Feeling. But over time you feel this. Sometimes you plug the pendulum to figure out which one it is, but it helps you fine tune that, then you can start picking up on it. So let's talk. Oh, sorry, you got a question? Sure, go ahead.
But I don't know, like,
Are they always there, or do they just come and go?
So she's asking about when she feels her dad come. She's asking, do they come and go, or only around specific times are they allowed to? Well, one thing that gets people uncomfortable is knowing that they also reside outside of time and space. So what that means is he can show up to your 5th birthday and go check it out again if you wanted to. So they reside outside of time and space, so they can be in multiple places from what we understand at the same time. So what works with spirit is oftentimes they're doing their own thing, but when we think about them, or maybe something happened or an event or something that crosses our mind, anytime we think about them or talk about them, it's like a beacon goes off and they can come to us like that, instantly. So even if you just woke up and thought about dad, and the next thing you know, pop, you hear the little dresser tap pop, you know what I mean? Next thing you know, there's dad, you know what I mean? They're always there when we call on them, they're always ready to go. But, yeah, well, and he's just really trying to help you understand that you're absolutely right, especially if you're getting the smells, right? Sometimes the smells or the taste or something, right? That's all part of the sensitivity, right? So it's really good. I would definitely trust that, though, because I definitely feel like if you want to talk more about it later, we can, but he definitely comes around. Absolutely. Cool. Any other questions? Cool. So let's talk a little bit about the method. So the method, what I do is I usually use my pendulum. So I'm going to pull one out real quick. This is my Anubis. This is one that has a blue frequency. This is one of my design that I use when I'm help healing and clearing non-human spirits, since that's pretty much what we're working with right now. It's what we're going to use today. So first things first, what I do is my semi-prayer protection, surround myself in the highest light, keep me protected from all negativity. The only beings that reside in the highest of light, be allowed to help me at this time, allow me to repel anything that doesn't serve my highest good health and well-being. Thank you. So some people hold their pendulums different starter. I'm just going to show you what works for me. Is I'm just going to give it a little swing, okay? And it's going to spin for a second, and you'll see it gets to this north and south. For me, this is balance. This means I'm ready to ask my questions. So I'll show you how fast this works. Show me what my yes looks like, and you can see it already gets to this clockwise spin. I can say thank you, clear. And I say show me what my no looks like, and it starts going to my counterclockwise spin. I say thank you, clear. I do this stuff, I wouldn't say every day, but not too many days that I don't. So I've been in sync with this. We're going to work with it. So the first thing that we do is we want to be able to get some sort of connection, right? If we're dealing with a human, if we're dealing with a deceased person, we ask to connect to their higher self. Basically what that is that's a part of their soul that's already on the other side. Our soul is so complex, you couldn't fit it all in a physical body. It'd be like trying to put a jet engine and trying to put it in a Matchbox car. It just wouldn't fit. So we get part of it, right? So that's like Christ part. So what we're doing is connecting with what's already on the other side. People want to know how the healing works. That's how it is. My higher self connects with theirs. We send the energy. It trickles down into them. That's how way that works. If we're dealing with the jinn, if we're dealing with a non-human spirit, all we have to do is just ask to make a mental connection, and that's sufficient. Because they respond to mental commands. That's where their influence is with the mental. That's what we work with. So we use the pendulum to help give us leverage. The reason why we have ones that are specific is because when I'm sending healing energy, I find that blue frequency gives us a little bit of an advantage. We can use other pendulums, but we can also use one that really works well, right? Like what works better to hammer in a nail? A hammer, a rock, or a brick? You can hammer in a nail with either one of them, right? But there might be one that's a little bit more specially tasked for the job. So that's what it kind of means by having like certain pendulums for doing certain things. How many of you guys have ever heard of Ho'oponopono before? Ho'oponopono? It's kind of a mouthful. Yeah. So Ho'oponopono means to make right twice. It's an ancient Hawaiian practice of reconciliation. This was done to make amends. This was done to help bring peace between people, within families, tribes, communities. So forgiveness is the tone to all of this. And the angle of Ho'oponopono, which I find really helpful with this, is that they believe that you and me have something in common with each other. Every single one of you have something in common with me right now. And that we have shared experiences on a soul level. And so if we focus on what we have in common, then we know each other way more. You know, I'm a tattoo artist, and this is probably one of the biggest things that I get a chance to do, is I'll sit there and I'll put my hands on somebody and I'll start tattooing them, and then I start getting these sensations in my body. If I get it in the lungs, I know it's grief. If I get it in the liver, I know it's anger. If I get it in the kidneys, I know it's fear. If I get it in the pancreas, I know that they're having a hard time expressing themselves. So, as I'm working on them, sometimes I'll mention it to them, just depends. Once again, we use kind of caution with what we talk about. Sometimes I'll say something, but a lot of times I'll find that part that's responding, and I'll start sending the breath to that spot that we have in common, and then you should see what happens to them. They usually fall asleep. One of the big things that happens. So when we start saying what's wrong with this person, how can we help this person, why is this person off, what do you have in common with them? Goes right back to how to clear spirits, because you have something in common with them. So if you could do that, that's really going to help get to the root of it. So that's the Ho'oponopono angle. So there's 4 phrases that go with Ho'oponopono, and that is, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. Now these are words, but the energy behind them is what makes them good. Different languages know what it means to feel gratitude. For someone to say, thank you, that really means a lot that you did that. We feel it, right? Someone that's wronged you, I am so sorry, I did not mean to do that. We feel it, right? Please forgive me. That is emotion. And then what's the biggest one at the very end? Thank you. Gratitude. When we can embody that, even for the hard stuff in life, that keeps us at a certain point of vibration. You want to know the best form of protection doing this work? Keep your vibration high by always being grateful and finding things to be grateful for, right? You might have noisy kids that are making a mess in the house, and you've already picked up the house 6 times a day and it doesn't look like you did it once. Be grateful you have a house that's helping your family. And then you have a family to make that mess. A lot of different ways we can look at things in life. So, Ho'oponopono, the breath. How does it all work together? When I do my commands, when we're healing and clearing spirits, the very first thing we want to do is remove their pain. We want to remove their pain. A lot of them aren't in very good shape. Sometimes they got some sort of pain, some sort of difficulty, and what we're doing is we're looking to take away that pain. So when I do my breath, the Ho'oponopono, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. The way the breath works is I breathe in for 4 seconds, I hold it, and when I exhale from my diaphragm, making that breath sound. You can feel it here, it's engaging your solar plexus. This is where the energy, this is our battery to our energy field. And then the last part, I hold my breath. Thank you. So when I add this, I'm going to say universal knowledge. I ask that we remove all pain and cure all astral lesions, and all of our gym brothers and sisters with this from the beginning of time to the present moment. Ready? Thank you. So I want you to watch my pendulum when I do this next one. You'll notice when I get the breath going, it'll start spinning, and as I get towards the end of the breath, it'll either balance out or it'll spin again, meaning I need to do it one more time. So if it keeps spinning, do it one more time, but usually one breath is enough. Universal knowledge, I ask that we depolarize all negative mental stimuli, neutralize the toxic emotional trauma stored in the Binka memory and energy field of our gym from the beginning of time to the present moment. So that's how you know you're ready to move on and bounce back out, okay? So this is my method, kind of what I developed, so I'm just showing you guys. If it works for you, great. If you have your own, just take what you can with it, okay? And last but not least, this is probably the most important part, right? And that is universal knowledge. I ask that we send nourishing, unconditional love to our gym brother. Allow them to feel full, content, and complete once again. So now we've taken away their pain, we've taken away their memories of pain, and we nourished them. They're in a much better state right now. And I'll bring this up, even though this opens up a whole other can of worms, that sometimes in this state, you know, we'll ask them, you know, are you feeling a little bit better? I get my yes. Thank you, Claire. Is there anybody else there with you? Angry or upset I'm talking to you? This time, no, but sometimes it's a yes. And so if you try and get a clearing on something and it doesn't clear, it's because there's probably something attached to it. This is something that opens up a whole other can of worms, that sometimes spirits can have other spirits attached to them, blocking the way. So this is, in this case, that's not today, but in general, that could be a thing. So I'm going to say, okay, do you wish to join your family back in your home dimension? Okay, we get a yes. These spirits, they don't go to the light, they're not from the light, don't try and send them to the light. That's not where they go. We're a little bit different than them, and we'll talk about that. But for right now, all you need to know is they just need to go back to their home dimension. That's all we can call it. And I can say, okay, cool, I can help you get there. But first, can you take a look around the room and tell me, do you see a being of light here with us? Absolutely. Okay, you get a big yes. So, wanting to help non-human spirits, you're gonna need the help of an angel or some sort of seraphim angel or some sort of spirit guide. And no matter what your relationship is with them, if you don't know them, they're already there. And so all you got to do is just ask them to join you, and then how you develop that relationship is up to you. Me, I've worked with a few different ones, and right now the one that works with me most is Gabriel. Gabriel seems to be the one that shows up for me. I used to have the Holy Mother a lot, was the one, but sometimes people come and they go depending on our level of stages of our journey. So right now Gabriel's the one. The thing is, archangels, they can go where these can go. We can't necessarily go, but because we have a physical body, and in this world what we have attached to the Creator can make us very, very important in this work, because we're so different and we're so special and in the middle of everything. So this is how we get better, is by being in the middle of it all. So last but not least, I'm gonna say, okay, do you see Gabriel here? Get a big yes. I'm gonna say, okay, is he speaking to you now? Yes. Is he asking you to go with him? Yes. And I'm going to say, okay, thank you. Will you go with him? Yes. Notice I'm not sending them or making them go anywhere. This is their free will. So to get them to want to go, this is the key to it all. And so, like, I don't want to say like a car salesman, but kind of like a car salesman, how they'll let you feel like you're part of the conversation, but they're directing it the whole time. It's very much that way. And I would encourage you not to figure out what's your name, when did you live, who were you born, and all those inquisitive things that some people like to get. Don't worry about it. Stick to business. Take away their pain, take away their memories of pain, nourish them, send them off, and be done with it. So, last but not least, I'm going to say universal knowledge. I ask that we surround, protect, heal, and keep Jim, brother in the light. We ask now to remove from this space and from all timelines, future, past, present, and parallel, known and unknown. Allow him to merge back with his home dimension, divinely, instantly, and painlessly. Let peace and tranquility follow you for all eternity. Perfect. So that's the method. So there's a little bit of a variance to when you're dealing with people as opposed to non-humans. With people, we have a Christ spark. Anybody know what time it is, by the way, real quick, before I get into this? 42? 42, dang, so I'll make this real quick. So I'll leave you with a little piece of this. So for me, when I started crossing over human spirits, people would say, help send them to the light, send them to the light, go in the tunnel of light, go send them to the light. After a while of doing that, I started feeling really off about it. And something was telling me that this wasn't really the right way to do it. So one day I was sitting there doing the work, and I know that we have a soul, we have a Christ spark, and I did the healing on this person who had passed away, took away their pain, took away their memories of pain, and I nourished them. And then I asked them, I said, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you look down in the middle of your chest and tell me, do you see a light here? And I got a big yes, that they could see a light in the middle of their chest. And I said, I think this is the way. Do me a favor. Look into this light, gaze into this light, take a deep breath in with me. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Cleared them on the spot. I dropped all my stuff and I said, what the hell am I doing here? That was intense, because that just shattered my reality of everything I thought that worked. This was something that bypassed everything that I thought I knew. When you're doing this work, this bypasses guardian angels. This bypasses all that stuff. You are working at a soul level. So they're there for your protection. But believe me when I tell you that using this part and using that breath, you can will stuff to you easily with this. So just know you got to be proficient at the breath before I recommend you do that. So the breath is something that it ties us to life. We can send it to help heal, and we can do a lot of amazing things with it. If you start putting this down and start actively using it, it's going to help people. So working with the Christ Spark, that was when I realized that I believe going to a light outside of us might put us in that loop of perpetual reincarnation where we're just kind of stuck in this loop. I think they call samsara, right? Where we're stuck in this loop, whereas the difference, if we leave through here, we merge with the Creator and then come back when we want to, even if that's right away. Or we would say right away. You know what I mean? So I'd say probably that's the biggest difference between the human and non-human. But guys, got any questions about anything? I know we don't have too much time left, so I'm happy to answer any questions. Yes. Yeah, because I believe that inner light is our soul, and I believe our soul is connected to the Creator. So if we get with that soul, then we merge with the Creator, rather than going into a construct that keeps us outside, because what we're up against is something that's very spiritual in nature that usually has the upper hand on us if we don't have the understanding, right, to recognize it. So this, to me, is something that I've been using ever since, and it seems to work really, really well. So I would say if you are curious about it, remember to ask this question. I don't know if you use a pendulum or whatever or whatnot, but ask that question. Ask that question when you get your own time. Just ask it. You know, when we send them to the light, are they just being reincarnated as opposed to being to the Christ Spark? And see what happens. Yeah, I don't know. Anything else, guys? No questions? Nothing? Cool. Well, all right. Well, I'm over on the far wall right now. I got copies of my book if you guys are curious. I have all this stuff plus a little bit more that's put down in a book. I believe in writing things down because in my world, electronics and me don't always get along. So I want to make sure you don't need Wi-Fi or a password to get into this book. So I have physical copies of it. So other than that, thank you so much for coming, you guys. I'm happy to stick around and talk a little bit more if you want. Thank you.
Thank you. I was gonna tell you, I don't know if you do any classes like around Portland and stuff, other than online, but we have a studio we just opened last year, and we'd love for you to go to some classes there.